Hello everyone and welcome to FAIR's monthly webinar series. I'm glad to have you here today. We've got a great presentation in store for you about safely navigating the restaurant scene. We are glad to have as a sponsor today Skeeter Snacks. They really made this possible. Just 1 second, I'm having a little technical hiccup. There we go. Skeeter's a proud sponsor of today's event, so we're glad to have them as a sponsor of this webinar. And our featured speaker today is Chef Joel Schaefer. Joel's been in the food service industry for over 25 years. He's a graduate of the California Culinary Academy and Valencia Community College with an AS in Culinary Management, a Certified Chef de Cuisine, and a Certified Hospitality Trainer. Joel's experience includes being a culinary instructor at Kapiolani Community College, hosting a healthy cooking television segment called Simply Food in Honolulu, Hawaii. He's the manager of product development and special diets for Walt Disney World and an adjunct culinary nutrition instructor for Valencia Community College in Orlando, Florida. Over the past few years, Joel has been a guest speaker, an MC, and a culinary demonstrator for various events and organizations such as the Gluten-Free Culinary Summit, the American Culinary Federation, the National Restaurant Association, Old Ways and Whole Grains Council, and of course us, the Food Allergy Research and Education. Joel is also the author of Serving People with Food Allergies, Kitchen Management, and Menu Creation. I'd like to present Joel Schaefer.
Thank you, Mike. It's great to be here, and I feel very honored to have an opportunity to come share my knowledge with all of our listeners. I've been in the food service industry, again, I said, over 25 years, and for the last 10 years I've been involved in the food allergy field. And I've been really blessed to have the opportunity to do this, to help people with food allergies and get them to feel comfortable eating in restaurants. So we're going to talk a little bit about our objectives today. We're going to talk about how to communicate with restaurant employees. We're going to learn a little bit more and understand how restaurant kitchens work, because I think that's very important that you have a better understanding of what happens in the back of the house. Develop a plan of action for navigating the restaurant scene, and also provide you with additional restaurant resources. And then at the end, Mike I'll give it back to Mike, and he'll talk about those other restaurant resources provided by FAIR. So if you're ready, let's get started and talk a little bit about mise en place, shall we? But first, what we're going to do is do a little poll here, and we want to ask you, our listeners, is how often do you dine out? Getting some feedback here.
Once or twice per week, and once or twice per month.
Once or twice per week, or once or twice per month. So there's a little mix there. That's pretty good. So let's go to our second poll question. How many local restaurants do you feel comfortable eating in? Probably a pretty big word, feel comfortable.
Neck and neck, 1 to 2 and 3 to 5.
1 to 2 and 3 to 5. That's pretty good. That you have some local restaurants that you actually can go and eat. Because that's the challenge we're going to talk about today, and how you navigate that. So let's talk a little bit about mise en place. You're probably wondering what that word means. Well, to a chef, it's a French term that means everything in place before cooking a particular dish. Chefs live this every day, and their success is determined by how well they prepare their mise en place. I want to apply this to your situation so that you can relate to the food service industry staff during your dining experience. So there are a few topics here we're going to go over. First one is preparation. This will cover how you prepare yourself before you go out to eat. What chefs know. We will discuss what chefs know so you can better prepare your questions for them. The menu review process. We'll cover the steps of what to look for while reviewing a menu. Kitchen procedures will provide you with a better understanding of how professional kitchens work. Providing suggestions for specialty items. This is a key element, I believe. When I worked for Walt Disney World, I learned from the guests that were coming there what they actually ate and some of the products that they purchased, which actually helped me develop some of the items for that program. Prepare your menu. This will cover the final steps of preparing your menu before your dining experience and then your personal checklist. This will provide you with a list to follow every time you go out. Well, here we got a little activity, another piece that you can get involved in. It's identifying the big 8 food allergens. I always like to have a little bit of activity, and those poll questions were a great way to get started. This activity will help you identify the 8 food allergens that the FDA recognizes, and they're commonly found in restaurant menu items. You'll be shown 6 menu items, and I'd like you to just look through those and see if you can identify the food allergens present in each dish. So the big 8, of course, I know you all know this, but a food allergen are the proteins that cause a food allergy reaction that account for 90% of all food allergies. And I'm using the term food allergen instead of food allergies because the chef is responsible for not introducing a food allergen to your food. He or she does not have control over your food allergy, only the food that you eat and what they're cooking for you. I know this doesn't cover all the allergens that you or your child may be allergic to, but again, this is the one that the people in the food service industry are focusing on because it's basically the main focus. Okay, here you're at Chef JJ's restaurant. Here's the menu that we have to go over. So the menu for today is Caesar salad, chicken tender lettuce wraps, sweet and sour chicken stir fry, grilled beef patty with caramelized onions and mushrooms, fettuccine alfredo with pesto drizzle, and chocolate mousse cake with candied walnuts and espresso foam. Some real fancy items in there, and Chef JJ really is passionate about his food. So, but he's going to have to help you out with identifying these allergens. So here's your first dish. This is the Caesar salad. So what do you think could be the allergens that are found in there? Give you a second to respond.
Getting fish as a suggestion.
Fish.
Milk, cheese, egg.
Yep, milk, cheese, egg. Good. Excellent. Egg, of course. Egg is one. That's basically going to be a raw egg. Could be used in a scratch dressing or in the manufactured dressing. Milk, of course, would be either the cheese added to the salad or in the dressing. Fish, of course, there's fresh anchovies or anchovy paste that's used in the dressing. And then, of course, wheat. You're going to have croutons. If you want croutons on it, wheat's going to be in there. Plus, there could be some other items that maybe are not listed, such as the bread. If it's a crouton used in the restaurant, it could have nuts in there also. So got to be aware of that.
And we did have some people pick up on that. So
yep.
Congratulations, some really adept people out there.
Excellent. The other thing is when you look at just the ingredients, thinking about the preparation, if someone's making this for you, they're going to be handling that lettuce with either a gloved hand or a tongs. They're going to be mixing it in a mixing bowl, adding the dressing from a ladle or maybe a squirt bottle. So there's all other issues of cross-contact that we'll talk about that could be a factor in just preparing this recipe. So the next one is the chicken tender lettuce wraps. What do you think could be present in that one?
And for those of you looking to participate, there is a question chat box. Those people are just responding there. So we're getting egg, milk, wheat, soy, peanut or tree nuts. Somebody mentioned peanut oil, milk in the breading.
Wow, I need to hire you guys, my chefs, because that's right. I mean, you look at these ingredients, egg, milk, and wheat are all part of the breading process. If you're doing it scratch or something that they're bought in the manufacturing. Some people caught up on or pinpointed nuts or soy. That could also be from a manufactured chicken tender. They could have soy ingredient in it because sometimes soy is used as a binder like soy lecithin. There's also frying it with other foods. That's a key point. If someone's going to make this for you and they're using a fryer, there could be multiple allergens present in the fryer. So great job. Next dish, how about sweet and sour chicken stir fry?
Nuts, soy, sesame, wheat, cross-contamination concerns. Lots of peanuts and tree nut responses. Probably soy.
Excellent. Here we go. I'm just going through the list here. You're right. There's a multiple list of allergens present in here. Egg could be in the breading or added in the recipe. A lot of recipes have actually just scrambled eggs sometimes in a sweet and sour. Fish sauce is definitely present in many Asian dishes. Milk is in the breading. If it's a breaded item, there could be milk in there. Peanuts, of course, most of the dishes are sauteed or stir-fried in peanut oil, or chopped peanuts could be added to it. soy could be in the soy sauce, and then wheat in the breading or in the soy sauce. Preparation, this dish could be, the chicken could even be prepared ahead of time and then reheated. You have a stir fry, they're cooking it in a wok or a saute pan that maybe is not clean, using tongs or spoons to handle these items that aren't properly clean. So there's a lot of areas that cross-contact could be involved in just preparing this dish. All right, next dish, grilled beef patty with caramelized onions and mushrooms.
Butter, soy, potentially nuts in the bun, egg, soy milk in the bun, wheat, oils, peppers, pretty good.
The list could go on, I'm sure. That's what you said. There's many other allergies that people are allergic to, onions, mushrooms, there could be multiple. But you're right. Egg, milk, soy, wheat can be present in the burger mix if it's made from scratch. Even when you, many restaurants have burgers that are pre-formed and pre-cooked and frozen. They use, there could be a lot of allergens present in there because to freeze and reheat food properly, they need stabilizers. So it's always good to even ask, do they make the burger from scratch or is it a manufactured item? So, and then when it comes to preparation, you know, there could be a prep team that's making the scratch burger. It's going to be grilled or seared on commonly shared grills or flat tops unless it's done separately in a pan. Onions and mushrooms are sauteed together in a pan, and then there's, of course, all the utensils used to handle this. So there's, again, as I repeated in the other recipes, there's always areas for cross-contact, which we'll talk a little bit further in the presentation. Our next dish, everybody loves fettuccine alfredo with pesto drizzle. Let's see what we have here.
Egg, pine nuts, nuts, wheat, dairy, milk, soy. That's pretty much the same ones there.
Yep. You have basically egg and wheat in the noodles. Milk could be is in the cream sauce, the nuts in the pesto. And then when it comes to preparation, you have sauce made ahead of time. Could be made ahead of time, then it's reheated on the stovetop or the steamer. So you have to look at there's issues with other items in the steamer or how it's heated up on the stove. Pesto could be store-bought or made from scratch. You have to check additional ingredients. Sometimes chefs make creative pestos and add additional ingredients. Then, of course, the item is going to be sauteed, which is cooked in a saute pan. There will be tongs or kitchen spoon used to handle the food. And then the pasta will be reheated, can be reheated in a sauce in a water that's used to reheat other foods or sauces. So, as most of you know, if you're seasoned diners, you know you're going to ask them to do everything separately. But you know you really need to focus on that cross contact. Okay, we're getting into the final dish here. Our dessert looks pretty wonderful here. It's the chocolate mousse cake with candied walnuts and espresso foam.
Wheat, nuts, milk, eggs, soy, lots of soy, nuts, soy, dairy.
I'm glad you picked up on the soy piece because soy is used as a stabilizer, as I mentioned, and soy could be present in the foam actually to make it more of a stabilized foam. And of course milk, egg, wheat, that could be in the mousse cake, of course, and then of course nuts as the garnish. So I think you so far navigated that menu quite well, yeah. So I'm pretty impressed. So I think I'll hire you all as my sous chefs so that you can help me help other people in their restaurants. So great job. All right, we'll go on to our next. So why do we do this activity? I think it's really I wanted you to realize why it is important to ask about food allergens in the menu items. And I'm pretty sure most of you do that, but you know you really have to get down to the nitty-gritty when you get involved in that. It is important to understand what restaurant employees have to think about before preparing your meal. Along with trying to find accurate ingredient information, they have to think of how to safely prepare your meal and then not back up their kitchen service, especially if it's during busy business hours. So I hope that many of you, when you go out, you don't go out during the busiest time of the meal period. It's best to go before or when it's slower in the evening for your meal. It is also essential that you plan ahead and keep it simple to keep yourself safe. The simpler the quest, the more successful the meal and easier for the chefs to prepare. Well, let's talk about preparation. And this is your first mise en place part, is you really need to consider the risk of dining out and how willing you are to trust someone else preparing your meal or a meal for your child. It may be too stressful to even give it a try. I know when I started my first food allergy request, I was very nervous as a chef, so I'm sure your anxiety can be the same. And before I even could tell the guests what I could do, I had to go back and it spent me 20 minutes in the kitchen doing research before I even came back to talk to the guests, and when I came back, she had already left. So that was my really first experience, and this was many, many years ago. And I learned about how to make that communication and balancing that risk to either dine out or even as a chef to prepare the food. If you do, first decide what you want to eat. I can't stress that enough. If you can decide what you want to eat before you even go there, you're gonna make it easier to focus in on different menu items. Spend time researching restaurants in your area and where you may be traveling. Start with chain restaurants. Many of them have food allergen safety programs already in place, and spend significant amount of time in their training. Once you find a restaurant, give them a call and talk to the chef or manager to discuss your request. If you receive favorable information from them, set a time to meet with them in person before actually dining there. Going to the restaurant first will give you a better feel of the operation and management team and how willing they are to accommodate you. It's also good to actually just get an experience of the feel of the restaurant when you walk in. How does the restaurant look? How is it clean? Is it, everybody look professional? Are you greeted correctly? So there's a lot of little extra steps that might give you that comfort level, and also the restaurant personnel, the comfort level that you're willing to talk to them first before you even go in there for a dining experience. All right, here's our next question. Do you decide what you want to eat before you dine out?
All right, we had about 31% say yes, 55% say sometimes, and about 15% say no.
Okay, so it looks like there is a balance there, and I would like to say that it's really good to decide what you want to eat first, because that will help decide a lot of your other questions as you move forward. Well, let's talk about what chefs know. This is very important. I'm sure many of you probably are not food service chefs, but if you are, these are some of the things that they know that would be good for you to understand. Is they know their menus. An experienced chef should know all of the ingredients in their menu and how the food is prepared. If you don't get the feeling that they know their menu well enough, beware of dining there. It's also good to know what chef you're talking to. I've worked in different levels of being a chef. I'm an executive chef now, so I spend, I have a lot of time doing paperwork, so I'm not in the kitchen as much. And then you have other chefs running the kitchen. You need to be who you're talking to and how well connected they are to the kitchen itself, because things can change on a moment's notice in the kitchen, and it's good to make sure that you have the right person at the right level to give you the correct information. Chefs know how their kitchen works. This has to do with how the food is received, stored, prepared, cooked, garnished, and served. Asking them questions about their steps will help you evaluate their understanding of their kitchen knowledge and cooking skill. And they know how to cook. Chefs should know how each menu item is prepared and cooked and what type of equipment and utensils are used to prepare each dish. Since cross-contact is the main reason guests with food allergies get sick, this is the main area of discussion to focus on. And I have a little story. I was sharing this with Mike on the way in. I was working in a kitchen a few years ago, and it always sticks in my mind. I had two soups that I was heating up. One was a cream of tomato, and another one was a vegan soup. So there's no milk, eggs, anything in it. And I had separate utensils to stir them, but accidentally I grabbed the one that was in the tomato cream soup and stirred the other one. Well, guess what? Too late. That one now has some type of milk protein in it. And I knew better, but I wasn't basically thinking straight at the time, and I made a mistake. That's what can happen in kitchens at any time. So I basically had to notify the staff, hey, if someone comes with a milk allergy, let me know. The soup now has milk proteins in it, and we want to make sure that we don't serve them. So It's very important to really focus on that cross contact. And we'll talk more about that in a second. Okay, what chefs don't know. Chefs still don't know a lot about food allergies. They may have heard about food allergies, but really do not know the type of foods that make people sick, or that food allergens, or the proteins, cannot be killed or destroyed by heat. They may not know about hidden ingredients in prepared foods. You may have to direct them to read food labels or review their recipes to find these hidden ingredients. As I said earlier, keep the food simple to keep yourself safe. You may have to settle on a seared piece of chicken or steamed vegetables if you're going to navigate your dining experience safely. Cross-contact may be a foreign word to them. Chefs are trained on cross-contamination, and cross-contamination really focuses on the bacteria and viruses and physical elements that can get caught in food. In most cases, to a chef, when there's cross-contamination, if it's bacteria or viral, there's a kill step involved, so it can be heated to where that bacteria is killed. But as you know, when it comes to the allergens, heat does not destroy the allergen. It's a protein. It doesn't go away. So a lot of chefs or managers don't understand that. So that's why when you talk to them about cross-contact, and if they look at you funny, you need to really explain what cross-contact means and say it's not the same as cross-contamination, because those terms still get confused in the industry. Let's talk about the menu review process. And as a chef, if you tell me what you can eat, I'll be able to create something for you. That's sort of the key. So that's why I said, do you decide what you want to eat or what you can eat before you actually go to the restaurant? Because if you came into the restaurant and said, I have a list of allergies that are the length of my arm, it's going to sort of make me very nervous. But if you say, look, chef, I have allergies to certain foods, but these are the foods I can eat, the chef's going to be able to really focus in on what ingredients they have in the kitchen and say, wow, you know what, I have these ingredients available. I can do something for you. So that's a very important piece. Another great step to safely navigating your dining experience is to review the menu with the chef or the manager. Identify the menu items you wish to eat or the ones that you know that you can eat, such as chicken, beef, or whatever that may be, and see if any of the allergens are present in those dishes. If there's something that you find that they can modify to fit your request, then that would be the way to go. Then focus in on that. If it isn't, of course, then you need to decide on some other options. And I think what's great about the internet now is you can go to the website of the restaurant, and many of them have menus there where you can start looking through and saying, I can eat these foods. Here's some items on their menu that might be able to meet my my food allergies. So once you get that all confirmed, I strongly suggest you write down what you're going to be eating. Make sure you keep a log or some notes yourself so you have that when you return to the restaurant. Okay, good. Let's talk about kitchen procedures. Here's where a lot of this hinges. Once you go through the ordering process and how your allergen information will be relayed to the kitchen. So once you decide what you're going to eat, what they can make, let's talk about the process. How's the order going to be taken? How's it going to be relayed to the kitchen? Because communication right now is the most important part. You've communicated to them, they have some information, but how are they going to communicate it when you arrive at the restaurant? You can never provide enough information for restaurant employees, but don't make it too difficult for them to understand or execute. As I said, there's always a story behind this. I remember while I was at Disney, there was a guest that came, and their child could only eat 8 foods. Well, they gave us a list of all the foods they couldn't eat, and we said, well, what can your child eat? And when they gave us those 8 foods, when we passed it on to the chefs, at the end of their week experience, they were so happy because the chefs could just take those 8 foods and create something from that because they knew what they could cook with versus what they couldn't. So there wasn't a restriction. It was, hey, this is what we have to work with. Let's go ahead and make it happen. Ask them if they have designated tools and equipment to prepare your meal. If so, they are ahead of the game. If they don't, discuss the cooking process with them. I would inform them of, to use individual saute and grill pans that have been cleaned and sanitized before making your meal. If they plan on preparing any fried items, beware. If they do not have a designated fryer for preparing foods for guests with food allergies, don't order the item. Even fryer filtration systems that restaurants have, a lot of times those are going through a common filtration system, so there's every chance that that oil is being reused and going back into their designated fryer, and they don't think of that process versus having a fryer that just is used for French fries and it's strained or filtered just with that a separate area or a specific way and going back into that fryer. So be very conscious of fried foods. It is also prudent to ask if they have designated area to prepare your meal. Many kitchens are very small and space is a premium. I've worked in small kitchens where there was hardly any elbow room between me and the dishwasher. So you have to be aware, some kitchens, when you walk into a restaurant, they could have a huge dining area, but their kitchen could be the size of your home kitchen. So imagine that, and they're putting out 100 covers or 200 covers. You know, they don't have a lot of space in their kitchen to prepare food in the designated area. So that will be a key to your deciding if that restaurant is the place for you to dine at. Now we're going to get into a real detailed piece, and this is taking just one menu item and what a cooking process looks like in a kitchen and how all the different steps would take from the time that food is from the beginning to the service part. So you can see what the steps a chef would have to take if you wanted to eat this item. He would have to think back of every step in here of how this food is prepared. So if we look at a braised pork loin, so the cooking method is going to be pan-seared and braised, and the equipment used is going to either be a roasting pan, there's going to be tongs, kitchen spoons, a hand blender, strainers, meat slicer, and sheet pan. So there's multiple pieces of equipment used in this process to make this dish. The method of preparation is the meat is going to be trimmed and then tied if necessary to hold its shape. The cooking method is braised, so the meat will be seared along with additional ingredients being added to the pan and incorporated with a kitchen spoon. The pan will then be covered with foil or a lid and placed in the oven. The cross-contact concerns would be any hidden ingredients in either if it's a spice blend on the meat or in maybe a broth that's used in the braising liquid. And then it's going to be the tong, the spoons, could have been used for other tasks in the process of actually making this dish. The preparation for service is the pork loin is going to be removed from the roasting pan and transferred to a holding pan. The sauce is going to be blended and then strained, so you can use the blender or what we call as a burr mixer, and then it's going to be strained through a strainer. Then you're going to have tongs. The equipment used is going to be tongs. You got a holding pan, hand blender, china cap, or a strainer. And the cross-contact concerns, again, are going to be not properly cleaning a blender or strainers. So, because strainers are very hard to clean properly, so that could be a concern there with the sauce that's going to be used back for this dish. Now we're ready to hold and serve this food. The food is held in a food warmer or on the hot line or possibly in the prep kitchen. During the service method, the pork loin will be sliced to order, so it's going to be on a cutting board. You're going to have tongs and a meat slicer, and then it's going to be served up. So it's going to be either in a busy area of the kitchen, probably in the grill station. So there's going to be a lot of other stuff going on in that area. And then the cross-contact concerns are going to be gloves not being changed while handling before handling tools and or the food, tongs and the slicer used for other tasks and not properly cleaned before use. So if you're going to say, oh, I'd like this one dish here, the chef's going to have to take every step back through the cooking process to make sure that all the steps for this meet the criteria, that there's no hidden allergens or there's a mistake with the handling of that food. Well, keep it simple to keep it safe. I think this is the best way to look at it. I know that when you go out to dine, you really want a culinary experience and an adventure when you dine out because, you know, you're paying customers and you don't get an opportunity to eat out very often. I have another little story to share that while at Disney there was, I think it was the same child was 8 years old and had not gone out to a restaurant ever. And of course that really pulled at our hearts, and we said, how can we make this a great experience? And just by being able to take those steps and prepare those 8 foods for that child was just an amazing experience for that guest and that family. And it was simple, and that kept the guests safe because it was simple. So, you know, I know that you want these great things, and the chefs sometimes might want to get real creative, but I think that's the time where you really try to keep it simple. And you got to remember, the restaurant employees will already be a little anxious about preparing your meal. So simplicity can make it successful. My suggestion is to discuss the following cooking techniques with them: saute, pan fry or sear, and empapillat, which is wrapped in foil or parchment paper. If one of these cooking techniques are followed, another step in navigating your dining experience will be accomplished. And I really like empapillat. When I put my book out, I wrote a few recipes about empapillat style. When I thought about that, I said, wow, what a great way to prepare food for people with food allergies, because if you designate a certain cook to prepare these items, once they cook this all separately, they can put this into this little parchment paper or this foil, and this can be kept in the refrigerator, and when you get an order, it's just reheated in the oven. So it's going to be in its own enclosed environment, and it's going to be held in that environment to where it's safe. There will be no allergens getting in there. And then when they serve it, it'll be easy to identify in the kitchen because it's on its own. It's going to be on a plate, but it's going to be wrapped separately. And then when it comes to your table, imagine how jealous your friends and family will be when you get your food or your child's food served separately, and they get to open right there at the table side, and you get that nice smell of that food coming out. So it's like that little surprise of a dinner. So I really sort of like that one, and it's a real great classic French dish, and a lot of chefs probably have forgot about empapillat, and it's a good item to suggest to them, and they might be open to doing something like that for you. So great suggestion, something you could also do at home. Provide suggestions for specialty foods. Another great way to really get the chefs on board or the managers is provide a list of some of the items that you purchased at the store. It's so easy now to go to so many grocery stores and find a lot of these options available. You know, gluten-free, allergen-free, because this is a growing market, and a lot of chefs now can even order them through their vendors. I know that I can order gluten-free brownies and some other items that are free of certain allergens. So we know that a lot of the main manufacturers are starting to get involved in this area. If you suggest an item that you say you purchase, make sure it's one that's free of multiple food allergens. This will provide them options that they could use for other guests, because if they're already cooking for you, there might be other guests coming in that have food allergies that they want to have more options for. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, when I was at Disney, we surveyed our customers and asked them, you know, what items do you purchase? And we got this huge list. That gave me an opportunity to look at those different items, test them out for quality, and to see how they will be used, that I could use them in the restaurant. So if you have something that covers multiple allergens that, you know, it could be as simple as a pancake mix or even a prepackaged bread, you know, the chefs say, hey, here's this item, you could try this, and you can make this for us. So it's already giving them some ideas that they could use to create the food. So it gives them a little more options. And then you'll have something that you're going to be comfortable with because you know that brand. It's all about that brand, too. That's helpful. You could also give them your favorite recipe. Chefs love recipes, and will have the opportunity to learn something new. And if you're dealing with a local restaurant, bring the chef a sample of something that you eat. I mean, you could make something and say, hey, look at this great cookie that I make at home, and, you know, you could have this, and we could come in, and we could have this for our dessert. You know, I'll show you how to do it, and it's something that they might be able to incorporate onto their menu later down the road. I keep going back to Disney, you know, because they've done such a great job. A lot of chefs actually incorporated some of those ideas into the regular menu items, so that a lot of the guests, they were such high quality, a lot of the guests didn't even know that they were allergen-free. They just loved the item. So when a guest that came with an allergy said, oh, yeah, we already have this dish on our menu that you could have. So it sort of was a win-win. So I think that's something that you could encourage with your local restaurants. Now we're going to prepare your menu. After you've discussed all of these topics, I know there's a lot of footwork and a lot of legwork ahead of you to prepare yourself to go out to dinner, but it's necessary. Once you've talked these topics, make sure you've documented everything, such as the menu item, the ingredients, the cooking techniques, and or any special instructions you need. If you have your own form, that's great. If not, FAIR has a restaurant card that's available to download that you could use to add that information onto, and have that available when you go in to dine at the restaurant. It's best to have it in writing, because there are times if you go back to that same restaurant and you spoke with one manager or a chef, something could have happened. Maybe that chef's not there that night. He could have gotten sick, and you need to relay all that information to that person. If you have that information in writing, it's going to be much easier on the staff, especially if someone's not there, and then it'll bring them up to speed a lot quicker than having to go through all the steps all over again. So I strongly advise writing that information down. All right, so here we are. We're going into safely navigating the restaurant scene. So now we're arriving at the restaurant. You need to always identify yourself and talk to the chef or the manager. As you see, I always put the chef at the first one, because they're actually the ones that are going to be cooking the food in the kitchen. Sometimes it's not always realistic that you're going to talk to the chef, but definitely speak with the manager. We want to make sure that you have someone in leadership involved in your discussion and the process of getting your food communicated to the kitchen and prepared correctly. Review the restaurant card with them to confirm what was discussed prior to your meal, and that they will still accommodate your request. When your food arrives, review the meal with the employee, whoever. Hopefully it's going to be either the head server or the manager or the chef that's delivering the food, so that they understand what it was and it's all been correctly prepared in the kitchen. If something's not right, send it back. I've heard countless times where someone didn't want to make us think about something or say, oh, I don't really want to send it back. You need to send it back. If one slight thing doesn't look right, or they didn't communicate the correct information back to you about the dish. Don't accept the meal unless it's exactly the way you ordered it. Expect a new meal and examine the next dish thoroughly before eating. I know that can be a challenge if everybody else has received their meal and you're waiting, or your child's waiting, but it's best to err on the side of caution. And at the end of the meal, thank the restaurant employees for safely taking care of your meal. Again, that's probably the biggest part of the success, is after you've had that success, is thanking them. I've been thanked often from guests that I prepared meals for, and it really is you do everything you can in the kitchen, and you're still concerned that there might be a mistake, and when it's successful, it's great. I mean, it's a great feeling for everybody, so please thank them when you're done. Let's talk about our personal checklist. Now, we all like checklists. I know you do. I do. I like checking things off. So here's the personal checklist that I want you to go through when you're going through this process. So did you refer your food allergy concern to a chef, manager, and person in charge? Number one, make sure you're speaking with someone in charge. Did you review the food allergy with the chef and check for hidden ingredients in the menu item? I would not have any issue with bringing out a box of a pre-made item so you could review it. I remember I had a guest that had a corn allergy, and that's not very common. Well, it's not identifiable on a menu item, but I let the guest read the ingredients, and she identified something that I would not have any idea had corn in it. So it was great that I actually did that, and they're the experts. That means you're the expert when it comes to your allergy. You can help educate them during this process. Did you remember to discuss the cooking procedures or potential cross-contact? Again, make sure you go through that, ask all the questions necessary, and make sure you're comfortable with how they're going to prepare your meal. Did you request to see ingredient labels if you were unsure of the restaurant findings? You could even ask for, see if they have a recipe for an item to see that what the actual ingredients are so that that could be reviewed. Did you provide the chef safety tips he or she can use to prepare your meal? Again, you probably deal with this a lot at home because you might have just a child that has a food allergy and some other children that don't, so you have your own safety techniques that you have to deal with unless you're cooking the same for everybody. So share that with them. It's something that they can learn and help them get better and prepare your meal safely. So it's a great checklist. I hope you like checking them off because, as you see, we got little check marks there. So we got that all checked off. Success. Well, chefs prepare themselves every day to serve hundreds and even thousands of meals. And serving people with food allergy is becoming more common. They are becoming more aware of the challenges and rewards of doing this, but they need your help to be successful. I believe if you prepare yourself and learn how to mise en place or put everything in place for your restaurant meal, you will safely navigate the restaurant scene every time. Mike, I turn it over to you. I hope that you had a great time learning some of these safety tips for the safely navigating the restaurant scene. Mike's going to go over a few pieces with you, and then we'll get back to answering some of your questions.
Thank you, Joel. So I just want to tell you a little bit about some of the additional resources that we have available on our website. So in addition to the chef card that Joel mentioned, which, by the way, someone had a really great tip for that, is to print that out from our website on really bright paper and laminate it when you take it to the restaurant. I think that's a great idea. But in addition to those, we also have some other materials, such as accompanying materials on how to deal with going out to restaurants. And in fact, these 3 items that are on our website now, and we've kind of called this area Safe Fare on our website. So it's foodallergy.org/safefare. Joel has been nice enough to help us with creating some of these materials. They're available there, and you can download them into nice PDFs as well. In addition to that, many of you probably know that in July we partnered with the National Restaurant Association to offer a Serve Safe Allergens online course. This certification covers things like Food Allergy 101, so knowing the difference between a food allergy and an intolerance, the mechanism for how a reaction happens, front-of-the-house protocols for servers and bussers, how to make sure you use clean rags, that you clean thoroughly with soap and water, that you're not adding anything to a plate once it comes out, that there's a good process for communicating allergy needs to managers or the chefs in the back of the house, and then back-of-the-house protocols for cooks and prep cooks. Everything from making sure there's no cross-contact on surfaces, that clean utensils are used, that dedicated fryers are used when possible, things like that. And finally, they also cover how to respond in an emergency should a reaction occur. So, call 911, stay with the person, encourage them to use epinephrine if they have it available. It is an employee-based program, so in other words, it's not the restaurant that's trained, it's actually each staff person that's trained. And that certification is good for 3 years, so it's not a one-and-done kind of a deal. We do request that people keep re-upping their certification as they do this. For those of you that may be in the restaurant industry and you'd like to take the course, it is available on foodallergens.com. And for those restaurants who train their staff through the program, starting probably in February, we're going to have a searchable database on our website for restaurants that have trained their staff. So that'll be mobile optimized. You'll be able to do that on the run from your smartphone. You'll be able to see exactly, okay, this restaurant trained their chef and or their manager and or X number of their staff. And we will require them to update that annually. There'll also be a listing on each restaurant's landing page about kind of what their allergen process is. So if there's a specific person they should ask for, what you should do, what days they recommend are easiest for them to accommodate you, what kind of accommodations they usually do. So it's going to be a very robust system. It'll be searchable by zip code and location. And again, that'll be available probably say late February of next year. For those restaurants that are trained, we'll also have a window sticker indicating that restaurants have been trained. So kind of like the Yelp and Zagat ratings that you see in the windows, we'll have one for FAIR. you can see those folks that have been through the training program. And in addition, in March, we'll be launching a new PSA campaign that will emphasize the importance of the restaurant customer communication in ensuring a safe experience. We want to make sure that restaurants are prepared to answer these questions, but also customers are very cognizant about that they actually have to clearly, slowly state their allergens when they get there so that the restaurant can fully try to accommodate their needs. In addition, we have some other restaurant tools and resources that will be coming on our website very soon. In addition, sample policies. These will all be free sample policies for putting some procedures in place in their restaurant, best practices for customer communication, and also even some menu suggestions. So that's kind of what we've got coming up. Again, I just wanted to thank Skeeter Snacks again for their sponsorship, and I'm going to give Joel a couple questions here before we continue on. So Joel, one of the first questions we got is commercial peanut oil safe for peanut allergies?
That's one of the few oils that's really not considered safe yet because peanut allergies, the sensitivity is so high, they recommend you, if you have a peanut allergy, not to have anything with peanut oil. There has been tests on soy oils that's a safer option with people with soy allergies, but if you have a peanut allergy, I don't recommend having anything with peanut oil.
Great. So we had someone respond in that said their daughter is allergic to peanuts, tree nuts, and eggs, but the daughter had a severe reaction to just eating a cheese plate. She's just curious, how could this have happened?
Well, traditionally, if someone put together a cheese platter or a cheese plate, nuts are usually a traditional garnish for a cheese platter. So if it was in a restaurant and they made multiple cheese platters and they might have made some without nuts, maybe the person had handled nuts prior and didn't change their gloves in between that. So nuts could have shown up somewhere in the touching of or handling of the cheese. So that's where I would probably say that possibly could have happened just in the cross contact.
Okay, great. How do you recommend lowering the anxiety in a child with severe allergies who is afraid of dining out? Is there some kind of reassurance that the restaurant or the parents might be able to provide?
I think, depending on the age of the child, if you get them involved in the process, so they're part of it. I've actually serviced some customers where I talked to it was an 8-year-old boy, 9. They did all the communication. So if they are involved with talking to the chef or the manager so they can have that one-on-one and get more comfortable with that and actually planning their own meal, it might relieve some of that anxiety because they're part of the process now, not the one just waiting to have the food served to them. So that would be my suggestion.
Right. And you talked about a couple different kinds of chefs in back of the house, folks preparing the meal. So we had a question, just if you could describe what are the different levels of chefs that you usually encounter in a kitchen?
Well, you can have a kitchen a supervisor or manager, which is someone that has culinary experience and management experience that's running the floor of the kitchen. So they're going to have a mix of experience and knowledge of kitchen operations. Then you're going to have a sous chef, which is like the second level of a chef in the kitchen. And they'll be more or less the running of the kitchen, so they'll make sure food is prepared properly. They'll be really in tune with what's going on in the kitchen. Then you have a chef de cuisine level, which is someone that might be in charge of multiple kitchens. So they're going to have 3 or 4 kitchens that they're overseeing and being part of. So they're going to be a little bit step back away from what's going on all the time versus a sous chef. And then, of course, you're going to have executive chef level, which is more of what they call an office chef because they're doing so much paperwork and menu development that they don't have as much contact with the kitchen unless it's a small kitchen to where they're called the executive chef and they're only chef there. So when you're talking to each level, maybe it's like, well, who's the sous chef on for that dinner that we're going to eat at the restaurant? So you could be speaking with the sous chef, which will know really what's going on in the kitchen.
And we had a question. I thought it was interesting. Do restaurants commonly use wooden cutting boards that may be treated with walnut oil, and if so, is that a concern?
Well, wood cutting boards are pretty much going away in the food service industry because they're really not considered safe anymore. In the old days, I mean, they say wood wouldn't harbor bacteria, But now with all the new food safety regulations, many wood boards, it's rare that you're going to find a wood board in the kitchen because you're going to get, points knocked against you for having it. So if it is, would it be a concern with walnut oil? Yes, because walnut oil isn't highly processed. So if you have a nut allergy, I mean, you'd have to ask the question if they have a wood cutting board. Of course, you'd say, could you not use that if you have a nut allergy? And if using walnut oil, yes, I would have a concern for that.
Great. In general, in your experience, are restaurants willing to accommodate guests?
I guess it's hard to say. I mean, me and Mike even talked about this, that the trend is changing. There are more restaurants that are finding out the benefits to being involved and to accommodate guests with food allergies. I think with the new generation of chefs coming out in the industry, you're going to see a bigger change, that chefs will be more willing to accommodate. A lot of it has to do is with how you communicate with them. If you can, you got to meet them halfway, make them also feel comfortable that they can be successful. I think you'll get a better win on both sides with you and the chef if you work with them as a 50-50 partnership.
And just kind of follow up that, are big chain restaurants usually more willing or to accommodate or more allergy aware?
I believe they are. I know many of the chain restaurants, and I've eaten at them and actually, done little tests on how their allergen programs and their protocols have been very well received, in my opinion. It doesn't mean you drop your guard. You still follow your process, but you'll have a better chance because they're more allergy aware. You're going to have a better process in place, and they're going to have designated items that they can serve you.
Any tips on dealing with wait staff who, in quotes, don't get it? They're confused, dismissive, hard to understand, those kinds of things.
As I said in the presentation, ask for a chef or a manager. If you get to that point and they seem the same way, then I would suggest not even eating at the restaurant. If they're like not willing or they're evasive or you just don't feel comfortable with how they're interacting with you, I would just have to leave.
Great. So we have several questions that have come in about what kinds of venues are safer, and if you could touch on all of those. So, for example, are buffets ever safe? And what kind of risks, special risks, might be involved with things like banquets or weddings?
Very good question. Buffets are very challenging because the food service operator cannot control how the utensils are being used throughout the buffet. So if someone goes in line and they're going to grab something using a tongs and then they set it in the wrong spot on another food, well, a service person's just going to come around and just move that tongs back to their location. So buffets are very challenging. If you're at a buffet, what I would suggest is that you talk to either a head waiter, because usually they have a head waiter, and say, you know what, I have an allergy or my child has an allergy, and we want to know what we can eat safely. And if you get walked through the buffet, I would ask, what do you have back in the hot box or in the back area, because there's always food in the back that hasn't been served yet. Could we have some food from there? Because at least that has been prepared in a safer manner. It hasn't been brought out yet and exposed to people breathing on it, touching it, or using a utensil in the wrong spot. And they can probably get you food from the back, and that's going to have a better chance of being successful. Weddings, buffets and caterings, those are all similar because it's going to be a buffet style. Even if it's a plated style, like you could go to a wedding and it's plated, if you know you're going to a venue where you have little control, is you definitely have to notify the person that's having the event and tell them about your food allergies, and even take the step of contacting the provider, the vendor, or the catering company yourself, and notifying them, hey, I'm coming to this event. I know they passed this information on, but I would like to verify that this information's been passed on, and I have an allergy. Could you prepare a safe meal? And even explain to them, hey, I can eat this. Have a piece of chicken, put it on a plate, and put it in a container, wrap it in plastic, whatever, label it, and put it in the hot box for me, and I'll ask for it when I arrive. Yeah. Give them those steps so that, hey, you know what, I can write this down. We can do that if you give them the help they need. Otherwise, they're going to it's going to elude them.
something that you are well familiar with now these days as well. Several questions that come in about navigating a college dining hall. So any tips there? You know, how receptive are colleges these days to working with food allergic students?
I think they're way more aware because we know legislation is going in that direction anyways. But you need to notify, if you're going off to college, you need to notify the school of your allergy. And then make sure that you come in contact with who the food service provider is and can I talk to the general manager, and make sure that information gets passed down, because in my understanding the information is confidential with the school, so it's not going to be passed on to us or the people in the food service. So you need to come and talk to, hey, can I talk to the chef or the general manager about my food allergy and see what accommodations we can make for the meals. Currently, where I work, I accommodate people with gluten-free diets. They have identified themselves. We talk to them, and every time they come in, they tell us, so we know they're there. We can prepare their food safely and get it out to them.
Great. We have time for, I think, about 2 more questions. We've had a couple questions also come in about foreign travel, and specifically England, but just any tips in general for foreign travel and visiting restaurants while there.
Well, there are a lot of chain restaurants throughout the world, so I don't want to keep you stuck to a chain restaurant, but that's something, depending on the severity of your allergy, is to focus more on chain restaurants, because some of this will carry over. I know that in Europe, the food allergy awareness is probably a little bit higher than the U.S. They actually have an expanded types of allergies that they focus on, but I think it's still planning your meals appropriately where you're going, and calling them ahead of time. And, you know, I know it's a lot of extra work, but you need to prepare yourself for that initial adventure into a different country. England, you probably won't have a language barrier there, but you're going to still have to deal with other issues of how their sanitation and safety procedures are in their kitchens, and just communicating with the right people at that location.
Great. Here's a kind of specific question, but I think it goes to cross-contact. We haven't really covered this in the question piece yet. Mm-hmm. My son has a severe peanut and tree nut allergy. We eat pancakes at a local restaurant regularly. We just learned from a server that they use the same grill for the nut pancakes as for the regular pancakes on the weekends. They clean the grill before regular pancakes are grilled. We've never had an issue, but should we be concerned?
Well, I always shy away from common cooking equipment, because they have to cleaning procedure is pretty heavy duty to clean a flat top grill to make sure all those nut proteins are gone. If you're not going there regular and there hasn't been an issue, I would still be aware. I would ask if they could do it in a non-stick pan, have a separate pan just for if it's only 3 pancakes. You know, the batter's fine, but hey, you know what? We're concerned with using the flat top, is what we call it in the kitchen, a flat top grill. Could you just do you have a non-stick pan that's safe and clean that you could prepare just those pancakes for our child? I think that would be the better way to go.
Great. Well, Joel, this has been fantastic. I want to thank him for being here today, for giving us a lot of great information. Give you a quick preview of what our next webinar will be. We hope you can join us. That's going to be on novel treatments for food allergy, so basically an overview of the research going on into a cure for food allergy. That will be with Dr. Wesley Burks from the University of North Carolina. That will be Wednesday, December 11th from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern. We will actually open member registration for those that are members of FAIR on Friday, and open registration for everyone will begin on Monday, November 18th. If you have any questions that we didn't get to today that I can try to forward along to Joel, feel free to email me at mspigler@foodallergy.org. Also, always interested in getting your thoughts on any topics that we should cover the webinar series moving forward. Again, thank you all for being here. That concludes our program for today, and have a great week.
Thank you.